For years, Zhang Yixing was introduced to the world as the kind of idol the entertainment industry rarely produces anymore. He was described as disciplined, focused, respectful, and untouched by controversy. In a time when celebrity headlines changed daily and scandals often overshadowed talent, his image felt almost unreal in its cleanliness. He worked tirelessly. He spoke carefully. He followed expectations with precision. Fans admired him. Brands trusted him. Media outlets praised him as proof that success could still come from dedication and restraint. But perfection like that does not simply happen by accident. It is built step by step. It is protected carefully. And sometimes, it comes at the cost of telling the full story. Long before the polished interviews and composed public appearances, there was a young trainee navigating a system that valued obedience above individuality. Before the reputation of being flawless, there were contracts, expectations, and decisions made at an age when saying no was rarely a real option. His story is not about dramatic scandals or shocking secrets. It is about something quieter and in many ways more complicated. It is about how a carefully constructed image can slowly become a cage. From the very beginning, Zhang Yixing was never marketed as rebellious or unpredictable. He was positioned as something far more valuable to the industry: reliable. In interviews, he emphasized hard work. On variety shows, he showed respect to seniors. In official profiles, the same message appeared again and again. He trained longer, complained less, and followed rules more strictly than anyone else. This consistency was not random. In an entertainment environment where unpredictability can threaten investments, a figure like Zhang Yixing represented stability. He was safe for broadcasters, safe for sponsors, safe for regulators. Media coverage reinforced this image constantly. He was called a clean idol, a model citizen, and an example of fame handled the right way. Fans embraced this narrative deeply. Over time, admiration turned into something stronger than popularity. It became moral trust. His silence was seen as humility. His restraint was interpreted as maturity. His lack of controversy was treated as proof of integrity. As his career expanded into music, acting, and international promotions, the narrative did not change. It solidified. He was no longer just a successful artist. He became a symbol, a living argument that obedience and endurance were the correct path in a demanding industry. But there is a hidden cost to being seen as perfect. When an image is built mostly on what someone never says and never reveals, it leaves little room for complexity. The more complete the construction becomes, the less flexible it is. By the time Zhang Yixing reached the height of his influence, his public identity had turned into something fixed, admired precisely because it seemed unbreakable. Yet a past that is never openly addressed does not disappear. It waits quietly. Before his reputation became so polished, he emerged from a trainee system designed not to cultivate individuality, but to produce compliance. The idol training structure that shaped his early career was built on strict hierarchies, long-term contracts, and the understanding that personal expression often came second to brand survival. Schedules were intense. Behavior was monitored. Loyalty was expected, not just encouraged. For young trainees, silence was not always a personal choice. It was part of survival. Decisions were made early, under conditions where refusal could lead to exclusion or being labeled difficult. This context is important because later public narratives simplified his journey into a story of pure determination and voluntary sacrifice. The complexities of operating within a tightly controlled system were rarely discussed. Fans preferred the inspiring version, a story where success came solely from effort and character. And to be fair, his effort was real. His discipline was real, but so were the structural pressures around him. The same contracts that helped launch his career also limited his voice. The same discipline that impressed audiences conditioned him to avoid risk. The same silence that once protected him gradually became part of his brand. As he transitioned into broader recognition, one pattern became clear. Silence was no longer incidental. It was strategic. At moments when clarification might have reshaped public perception, he chose restraint. When audiences expected reflection, he remained composed. In domestic media, this approach was praised as professionalism and respect. In many parts of Asia, restraint can be interpreted as dignity. But as his global visibility increased, interpretations began to differ. In Western media culture, not speaking is rarely seen as neutral. It can appear distant. As his international audience grew, so did the gap between these cultural readings. Each unaddressed topic added quiet weight. Each avoided clarification slowly shaped perception. His image remained clean, but curiosity around it shifted. What once felt like humility began to feel like calculation to some observers. The irony is that this strategy preserved his career in the short term while limiting its evolution in the long term. He avoided dramatic controversies that ended other careers. But he also avoided the kind of vulnerable moments that allow public figures to redefine themselves. Growth, if it happened, remained internal and unseen. For audiences, especially those unfamiliar with the cultural logic of restraint, the question slowly changed from "why doesn't he speak?" to "what is being protected?" And once that question exists, speculation fills the silence. There was no dramatic fall from grace. Instead, something subtler happened, a gradual shift in momentum. His projects continued. He remained successful on paper, yet the energy surrounding him felt different. New releases were received respectfully, but not passionately. Media descriptions grew repetitive. The same words disciplined, reliable, humble followed him year after year. It was as if there was nothing new left to discover. This is the paradox of perfection. It is too stable to collapse, yet too rigid to evolve. In an industry fueled by reinvention, he found himself confined by the very qualities that once made him exceptional. International audiences, less emotionally invested in his original narrative, sometimes struggled to connect with an image that felt static. Domestic audiences remained supportive, but admiration gradually became habitual rather than urgent. People stopped asking who he was becoming. They only asked whether he was still the same. And that shift matters. When curiosity disappears, relevance narrows. The cracks were not dramatic, they were structural. A reputation built entirely on control leaves no room for surprise. And without surprise, renewal becomes difficult. At this stage, the story stops being about branding and begins to reveal something more personal: the human cost of maintaining flawlessness. For years, he existed inside an identity that allowed almost no room for contradiction or visible growth. Every move was measured against expectations formed early in his career. To show uncertainty could risk being misunderstood. To revisit the past could invite questions with no simple answers. To redefine himself openly could disturb the trust that had taken years to build. So consistency remained the safest option. But consistency can slowly erase individuality. What audiences saw was control. What they did not see was constraint. Behind polished performances and disciplined interviews was a person shaped by years of conditional approval, where value was closely tied to compliance. This does not mean his image was false. It means it was incomplete. He was never allowed to fail publicly. And without public failure, public growth becomes nearly impossible. In many ways, he became a prisoner of his own success, admired for being unchanging in a world that quietly demands evolution. Audiences did not reject him, but they also struggled to rediscover him. His career moved forward, his narrative stood still. And that stillness carries weight. Because when an idol is loved primarily for being perfect, the cost of that love can be the loss of the freedom to be seen as unfinished, to be uncertain, to be human. In the end, Zhang Yixing's story is not about a scandal exposed or a dramatic downfall. It is about a realization. He remains respected, he remains present, he remains successful, but the version of him that the public knows has changed very little over the years. Perfection, once achieved, can become a ceiling instead of a goal. The discipline that built trust also reduced flexibility. The silence that ensured safety slowly reduced curiosity. The past that was never fully explored remained quietly influential. His image was not fake, it was carefully curated. And in an industry that rewards clarity but struggles with complexity, he survived by becoming exactly what was expected of him, even when that expectation left little room for visible transformation. For global audiences, his journey reflects something larger about modern celebrity culture. Sometimes the most controlled images are not hiding dramatic secrets. They are hiding vulnerability. They are hiding growth. They are hiding the ordinary human process of becoming. The lingering question is not whether he will fall from grace. It is whether he will ever feel free enough to change publicly. Because perhaps the greatest cost of being seen as perfect is not pressure or isolation. It is the quiet loss of the right to be seen as evolving.